Don't forget, ko-fi.com/stopwritingalone is a real simple way to show your support for what's going on here week after week. Hi, everyone. This is Nicole Rivera, and you're listening to the Stop Writing Alone podcast for writers who are looking for their writing community. I know you want to find readers for your work, but I think your first step is to connect with other writers. That's what we're going to do here in the Stop Writing Alone podcast. We'll do writing prompts and other writing group activities, discover online writing communities, learn how to find local writing groups, or how to make your own. Join us as we explore, learn, and write. Hi, this is Nicole Rivera, and you're listening to the Stop Writing Alone podcast. I can hardly believe it, but I was on Instagram this week, and my local newspaper posted a remembrance picture saying that 1 year ago, this week, I think it was Tuesday, was our first case of COVID-19 in Staten Island. And when I saw it, I was like, whoa, it was 1 year. And then I started looking at the calendar, putting it all together, and I realized that, yeah, this was like the last week that my son was in school, and he actually was under the weather that final week. So I think I had him out either like Thursday, Friday, something like that. Like my son actually missed the last couple of days of school right before the lockdown. And next Friday, the 19th, would be my husband's last day in the school building for a year. So it's just sort of coming to this like clear moment for me that it has been a solid year of life being completely different. And then I feel very blessed and lucky to say that I did get my first dose of the vaccine last week. So it does feel like I'm seeing a light at the end of the tunnel personally and sort of globally as well. But regardless, this has happened. This past year has happened. It has been completely different for all of us. And whether that meant that you were on, complete lockdown and working from home and not in your regular routine in any manner, or you sort of did the hybrid life where maybe you still went out to your workplace but were otherwise home because of, social engagements and going out to places like restaurants and things like that was limited to you. Whatever part of the scale you're on, you and I and all of us have just been through a solid year of something no one, has really ever experienced before. And this past week in the Happy Campers Club, as we started the week on Monday, we start with goals and accountability, but we also start with what did we achieve in the last week, even if it wasn't our full goal. And I created this like workbook for everybody that I called your winning workbook. And I want you to write down your wins for every single week that you're in camp, even if it's not your full goal. If you said you wanted to write 1,000 words and you only wrote 100, I want you to write down that you wrote 100 words. I want you to celebrate that, and I want you to write it down. And I kind of got this idea and this practice from something that, believe it or not, I first mentioned on this podcast exactly 1 year ago. And it's the reversed bucket list. And this is a practice where instead of a traditional bucket list where you write down all of the things you hope to accomplish before you kick the bucket, it is a running tally of things that you have accomplished in your life up until now. I mentioned this today, and I mentioned this in this episode because I think it's a really, really important thing for everyone to stop and do right now for this year. And it's something that I want to do myself right now for a year of life and quarantine, lockdown, pandemic. what did I accomplish? And there's a couple of reasons for it. I think when we get back into the swing of things, we're going to remember this sort of lull and wonder, why didn't I X, Y, and Z? Whatever, so many people, when this was first getting started, were saying, oh, wow, this is going to be an excellent opportunity for me to do all the things, particularly anybody that had a creative dream, whether it was writing a book or completing some project that, work has kept us away from. It kind of felt like the universe was saying, now's your chance. And some people took that chance and ran with it and were able to accomplish it. And other people didn't. And I think there's such legitimate reasons why that couldn't have and possibly shouldn't have happened for all these people. And I don't want everybody to sit and think about all the things they didn't accomplish during this past year, because whatever it is that you accomplished in this previous year, it's got to be counted as a win. Every little time you showed up for yourself, you showed up for your writing, you showed up for friends, family, your community, all of those things are huge wins. And I strongly believe that any accomplishments that we have under duress are amplified. So if you typically write 1,000 words a week, but during the pandemic, you were only able to write 100 words per week, I feel like there's a little balance in there, because we have to take into account all of the mental stress and just this has not been an easy year. So the fact that you were able to show up in any way to your creative life has to be celebrated, that you were able to give yourself some level of peace of mind to do that. So really this week, I want to highlight your wins. I want you to take some time to write down the things that you accomplished in the past year. Now, I want to make sure that I have your mind set correctly for this. I'm not talking about like big wins. And don't get me wrong, you're going to write down big wins. But when you construct your own reverse bucket list, like if I was saying to do it, the real deal reverse bucket list is 100 things you've accomplished since you were born. And one of the things you put on that list is I learned to walk. Like that's how small you start. I learned to walk. I learned to talk. I learned to write. Those are all accomplishments, and they seem like ridiculous, but they're not, because they were huge in the moment, and the struggle and the work that you did to make it happen at the moment was a big deal. And the problem with all of our accomplishments is that once we reach that level of accomplishment and surpass it, because we're growing people, right? We're growing beings. We start to think that those things aren't a big deal because we're not in that same space. And I feel like all of that is true for this past year. You may have done something that outside of this year and outside of the stresses of what you were going through may not seem like a big deal. But in this moment, while it's still fresh and still tangible, I think you can recognize all the wonder that you accomplished. And I'm not even joking. Like, if you were somebody that got legit dressed for work from home, I need you to recognize that as an accomplishment. So many people are showing up to work in PJs or half PJs or what have you. So if you showed up on that level, that in and of itself is an accomplishment. And I know it seems silly because you say, well, I always get dressed for work. Yeah, but during this time, that's a big deal. So, yeah, I think it's a good moment right now at the 1 year mark. And I know that everybody's sort of on a different calendar. Like if you're not in New York, it might not have been now. It might, your 1 year mark might be a month from now or what have you. But if you're in the US, it's kind of like, I feel like, well, I don't know, maybe this is how I'm seeing it because this is my world. But it felt very much like this was the moment that the US was like, oh, it's like here. Oh, this is serious. But regardless, even if this isn't your 1 year mark, it's a good time to start looking back and reflecting upon the things that you have accomplished. And I do think that number of 100 things might not be too high of a number. You want to go half? You want to do 50? That's a little less than one per week. What did you accomplish in the last year? And it doesn't all have to be for your writing, even though this is the Stop Writing Alone podcast. But I think anything that you can celebrate is worthy of being marked down on this list, because I would want everybody to take a moment and recognize what they managed to produce and do and be in the midst of all of this chaos. And if you have any way of transporting yourself back to a year ago, this is one of the things that I kind of love about social media. I think that's a really interesting exercise as well. So before I recorded this episode, I went back and listened to the episode. I want to say it was episode 61 that I recorded this week 1 year ago. And it was really interesting to hear all of the things that I was planning. And of course, I'm only getting like a snapshot because I'm only hearing my podcast. But it puts me back in that time and space. And I remember I was planning the first ever run of the Happy Campers, and I had no idea what I was in for or what that was going to be. And that is something that, counts as a win for my last year, because that has turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful thing, sanity saving even in the last year. However, one of the other things that I was planning that never happened was a writing retreat with Sam Kimberly. We had booked the house. We had people signed up. We were ready to go in May. We were going to go to Deep Creek in Maryland. I mean, it was just really, really exciting. And we even postponed it. We said we'll do it in the fall, thinking that we'd be able to travel in the fall. We didn't get to do that. So it didn't happen, right? And there's like all of these feelings about like how excited I was at that time, doing all that planning, and it never came to be. And yet I kind of still see that as one of my wins for the last year, because it was being able to negotiate this big idea and shift with the times and still continue to show up for myself, for the community, for everything in the wake of this thing having to be put aside. I really was so disappointed that didn't get to go on. And then one of the other things that I was discussing was the writing the 52 stories in 52 weeks, and how I had been 10 stories in and I didn't know if I was going to make it. But I made it through that. And I was talking about how Earth Hour was coming up at the end of the month, which is coming up at the end of this month too. And I was thinking, when I was talking about Earth Hour, that this is like a real opportunity for people to stop and pause and shut off all the the power. Just as a recap, if you don't remember, Earth Hour is a global celebration every March to bring a kind of shine a light on the climate crisis across the world, and basically anybody that participates in Earth Hour on I think it's the last Saturday, might be the last Sunday of March. Everybody shuts off their lights and power and unplugs for an hour, to sort of give Mother Earth a little hug. And I was talking about Earth Hour on this episode, and not only like telling writers about it and saying like this is one time that I love to write and read and really like slow down. I was really thinking this is a really great opportunity for everybody to just stop for 1 hour. So clueless that we were going to have a flippin' year of stopping life as we knew it. So it's really, really interesting to sort of go back, look at that, and see where were you physically, but also mentally and emotionally 1 year ago. And I think as writers, I've discussed this before, we're artists and art is witness, and we are witnessing an incredible time, taking this moment to jot down the realities of this past year for yourself, and that includes the wins, is probably a really good practice just in observation. So this is a episode that has some homework. Number 1, wherever you can, and like I said, social media is great for this. You can go to Facebook memories, or you can just scroll back in your Instagram. If you're on Twitter, see if you can get back to like March 2020 and just like try to drop yourself into this week last year. So, like the first week of March, second week of March, see, where were you at? Was COVID on your radar yet? I don't think it was on my radar in any real sense yet. And where were you planning? What was your next step going to be? And yeah, I just think it's fascinating, really, really fascinating, because as we are getting closer to, like I said, the light at the end of the tunnel, you can recapture those look ahead that you had, right? What was the thing that you were planning, and maybe pick up where you left off if you didn't accomplish X, Y, or Z, So that's the first homework. Look back, see where you were at. But the second and the possibly most important thing is I want you to do a list of wins for the last 12 months. What did you accomplish these last 12 months? And you are not allowed to say, I didn't accomplish anything. If you survived the last 12 months, that's a win. And I'm telling you to go this basic because, not to be, really depressing about this, but a lot of people didn't do that. So that's a win that everybody can write down that is hearing this right now and go from there. And you can make a list of things that are your wins for the last year in the age of a global pandemic. You survived, and some. I don't know what that and some is. I didn't even do mine yet. I'm going to sit here after while the episode uploads, while I am putting together all the production of this episode, and I am going to start jotting down my pandemic life win list. So reflect on where you were last year. I did that. That was pretty cool. I actually am going to do the social media thing too. I just did the podcast thing, and that was oddly enlightening. I really did. I was in a lot of different places, and do your wins list for the last year. And then a sort of like fun homework is what's next? What's next? What is the thing that you want to do next? And it could be the thing that you were about to do 1 year ago, or it could be something completely different. You may have a completely different skew and view on the things that are important and where you want to go next. But yeah, I'm really, really curious to hear what you have accomplished. I know, this can be a very private list, but if there's anything that you want to share, I would love to know, because I think it's really important that we are sharing in this pride of the accomplishments that we've had in the last year. But I want to thank you for being here, for listening. Yeah, I know that I've said that the Happy Campers in and of itself was a sanity saver in the last year, but this podcast has been a through thread that I feel blessed to have had before and now, going into after, I hope, but definitely during all of this. So I thank you for listening and giving me a reason. I also was super duper excited last week to see that there was a brand new review on the Stop Writing Alone podcast. And so after all these weeks and months of saying, don't forget, if you haven't left a review for the Stop Writing Alone podcast, I tapped in and I checked, and I was so excited because there's a brand new review on iTunes from Adrian. So I wanted to say thank you, Adrian, but I also wanted to read for you what Adrian wrote. It says, exactly what I love when I dig in on a project. Resources and beautiful community. Thank you, Nicole, for what you have created here. So thank you, Adrian, for your beautiful review. It warms my heart anytime I see and hear from everyone. I was listening to the Writing Excuses podcast this week, and they were talking about paying it forward, and one of their homework assignments, their singular homework assignment for this week's episode was to write a thank you to a mentor that may have helped you on your writing journey. And they specifically said, hold on, but don't write to us. I'm not giving you this homework so that you write to me. Right. And, but they did say, however, you got to know that anytime someone says thank you, it is so uplifting. We don't expect people to say it, and we don't necessarily, dig and look for those thank yous. But when you get them, it is, really, it's just wonderful. And I have to say, it's true. It's true, as true now as it was in teaching. Like hearing thank you or just any level of appreciation, you don't realize how badly you needed it or wanted it until you see it or hear it or read it. And then you're like, wow, okay, yeah, that was beautiful. So thank you, Adrian. That was beautiful. For everybody else, thank you again for listening, because that too is beautiful. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you or hear you or feel your essence as I speak to you here next week. Don't forget, over at YouTube on NV Rivera is the YouTube channel. Every single Friday I'm sharing writing tools and writing exercises, and this week is going to be a brand new writing exercise for you. So check it out, Friday Night Writes. And that's it for now. Just go collect your wins and enjoy the process. And congratulations on making it through this past year. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the Stop Writing Alone podcast wherever you're listening to this episode today. Then connect with us on Facebook at Stop Writing Alone Facebook page or in the Stop Writing Alone with Nicole Rivera Facebook group. Check Instagram or Twitter where I'm at NV_Rivera to find links to our email newsletter. Recording, hosting, editing, producing. It's so much work. Disaster has struck. I finished my coffee. Tell me coffee is coming. ko-fi.com/stop writing alone.